enough today. So I'm just like, are you going to bring that to the 9 o'clock? All right. I'm warming up. If you kind of act like you're interested in what I'm saying, I might get there. All right. I'll act some stuff out. Okay. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground. That was supernatural. That was God fighting. See, whenever you get God involved, something supernatural is about to happen. Something super to your natural. Something amazing is going to begin to take place, right? And all of a sudden, the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand, on their left. Man, if that was me, though, I'd be like, Moses would be up there, hey, get up here. I just want to touch stuff. I want to see what a fish looks like congealed, you know. The shark is, I don't think they had sharks in the Red Sea. Well, anyway, there's a giant fish there, you know. I can just imagine it, just kind of looking at it. You know, the fish is like, you know, it says the walls were congealed. So does that mean the fish were and all that? I got a cartoon imagination, guys. I write children's books. I think this way. Don't you? Okay, I'm not offended. This is don't go there zone, okay? But you ever had somebody try to mess with you? You had somebody that tried to come on your property? And when we were kids, and you had that weirdo that lived across the street from you or down the street, and you tell, don't come into my house or I'm going to tell my dad. And they would purposely step right next to the sidewalk and see how, I used to do it to them, see how close I could get. You're about to touch my property. Get off. I'll call the cops. You're 8. Okay. Right, officer? How many 8-year-olds? You know, hey, excuse me, 911, what's your emergency? Somebody's on my property. I don't think so. No, it'd be more like somebody's trying to take my big wheel. All right, but anyway, watch this. In verse 23, I'm going to show you this no-go zone. And the Egyptians, the swarm of flies, the enemy, went after them. In the midst of the sea, a swarm of flies. And watch this. These were elite warriors, all of Pharaoh's, his horses, his choice chariot. Man, he brought out his best stuff. You say, why? Because you got to read verse 2, if you understand this story, is they went to the place of Baal-zephon, which Baal-zephon was an Egyptian stronghold fortress that watched over the sea, and it was considered Egypt's most powerful god that they worshiped, their false god, the sea dragon, the sea monster. And Pharaoh was so prideful, he thought, oh, look, Baal-zephon opened up the Red Sea. No, you're getting set up by the Lord of the fight, you fly. Right? And buzz off. I mean, that's really what God was doing. He set them up going, buzz off. Look at your neighbor and say, no, don't say it to your neighbor. We want you there at the 9 o'clock. But say it with some attitude. Buzz off. Buzz off. Say it like you're Russian. Buzz off. Right? Say it like you're Zelensky. President Trump, you see, one day you'll find out. No, you don't hold the cards. No, actually, I don't like the Trump card. Listen, I don't think you hold the cards. And then he leaves, and it was reported that he got kicked out of the White House, but then they interviewed Zelensky later. Zelensky, where were you? I don't know, I raised my hand, but President Trump didn't see it. I had to go to the bathroom. You are not ready for me this morning. Now watch this. All the horses, all the chariots, all the Humpty Dumpty, that's what it sounds like. We're coming after him. Now watch this. God establishes a no-go zone. Okay? How many of you wake up in the morning? I mean, all of you, hopefully, yeah, you're alive. Wait, make sure you wake up. No. But, those of you that are watching, that wasn't a trick question. But you wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden, you go and you get a drink of water because your throat is sore. Your body starts being aching. You know what that is? That is the sound of something buzzing. Buzz, buzz. It's like the enemy, the Lord of the Flies, the devil, is trying to perhaps invade your go zone. Sometimes we wait until that stupid fly lands on our prime rib before we shoo it off. We tolerate way too much. Sometimes we need to establish this is a no-go zone. You can't touch my wife. You cannot touch my husband. You can't touch my kids. Quit saying, well, he's the colicky baby. No, that's a no-go zone. My baby is not a colicky baby. My kid's not a nut. Some of you need to start saying, devil, it's a no-go zone over my kids. Don't wait till they're teenagers and they act like they're a teenager. Start prophesying ahead of time. My kid, in his teenage years, young adult years, is going to serve the Lord, and they're going to honor the mother and father in the Lord, for this is right. They're not going to go the way of darkness. They're not going to go the way of evil. Don't just wait till you send them off to get indoctrinated in the schools and they come back and tell you they're an atheist. And it came to pass in the morning watch that the Lord looked into the host of the flies of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire. And look at what he did. He established, you ain't going here, devil. No go zone. He took off the chariot wheels. Come on, how many cycles are trying to happen in your life like those, chariot wheels? One trial after another, one storm after another, one bill after another, one sickness after another, right? Come on, you need to say, no, I command those demonic chariot wheels and cycles. This is a no-go zone. No, I take authority over you. And they said, let us flee from the Lord who fights against us. I'm sure if you could interview the flies that you're going to swat, I'm sure they're like, hey, man, let's not invade this picnic, right? That's the way the devil has to feel about you. I ain't going around their house. You kidding? I'm tired of getting swatted, right? Let the demons call each other, while they're having deviled eggs and deviled ham, brrring, Satan's hotline. Yo, I'm over at Doug Daniels, Pastor Doug Daniels' house, and he keeps swatting me. Well, don't ask me to come over there. I ain't coming over there. You go over there. Right? You want him to think twice. No, most people, it's bring, bring, bring. Yeah, Satan's hotline. Yeah, come on over here. Bring about 700 of you foul devils that come over there. We got these guys. Like, what do you mean? Oh, you spirit of infirmity, get off your tush and get over here. We got some openings. Hey, I see something in the marriage. Get over here. Let's put strife into home and see if we can come. You spirit of divorce, let's come and attack this house over here. And what do? They start going, buzz, 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 and you just let them in. Now, how many of you, listen, I got 3 German Shepherds and a Shih Tzu, a little dog, and he thinks he owns them. That is a lot of waste. And I see these trucks that drive around town, manure scooper people. I'm like, dude, that would never work. Your truck could not hold. All right? Plus, Brenda knows I hate flies. I hate that. So I clean it up every single day. If they go, I'm there with the scooper. I get that stuff up and out of there. Why? I don't want to step in it. Number one, I don't want them to step in it. I've trained them. They have to go in certain places. You go here. Herbie's like, I'm not listening. So he just kind of goes wherever. That's a little Shih Tzu. All right, now listen. But you're out in the backyard. Okay, this was a no-go zone. God said to these flies of the Egyptians, you're not going to touch them. You're not going here. Now, you're out there, having a picnic. How many of you ever had a picnic? Yeah, my wife and I, we like to go on picnics, man. We set up all of our picnic gear. And Brenda brings flowers, and then she brings, food. And I have this little camping thing where I take a nap while she sets everything up. But there's nothing worse than you have all this nice little picnic food out there, and it's laid out, and you're ready to have an amazing time, and all of a sudden, right? And those nasty flies have the audacity to land on your fried chicken. And you're just looking at it like, heck no, I don't know, fly, where you have been. I don't know what you landed on, especially if it's at my house. I'm like, I don't know. Brenda, I cannot eat that fly. How many of you like that? How many of you go, oh, welcome, bring more of your friends? But I know people that do that stuff. I was mentioning in the first service, I know people that wonder why they can never find anybody who wants to date them. Well, maybe while you're sitting across the table, you have so many open wounds from past hurts, relationships, and things that have happened to you that person's just trying to connect to you, but they can't stop watching you going like this because there's flies buzzing around you. Because the enemy just keeps digging up stuff. Right? You don't trust anybody. You're afraid to open your heart. You don't want to be hurt again. Or here's this. You're so wounded, you throw yourself at Swanky, and he is an idiot. And everybody else can tell you, hey, you need to tell Swanky, buzz off. And you're sitting there welcoming him. Oh, it's like that fly that lands on your prime rib. What are you doing that for? Pastor, you're getting ridiculous. No, I'm getting biblical. Come on, I feel that song. Let's get biblical. Biblical. Let's get biblical. What is wrong with me? Everything is right. Everything is right with me today. Everything is so right. Look at Exodus 8. I'm trying to offend you in a good way. Biblically. So you won't what? So I won't do what? So then you go to the 9 o'clock. You'll all go to the 9 o'clock. Okay. I promise if you all will go to the 9 o'clock, I will never tell jokes again. All right. Oh, okay. Well, then I will tell jokes again. I'll bring all these great material over to the 9 o'clock. There you go. There you go. Okay. All right. You guys are great. Don't lose your sassiness. All right. Now watch this. This is God talking. I will in the day of the land of Goshen put a difference in which my people dwell. Now watch. God is establishing a no-go zone, a no-fly zone. He said, no swarms of flies are going to be around my people's stuff. Now, if God was adamant about don't let the flies in, why are we? Why are we letting the enemy attack our marriages? Why are we letting him attack our minds with fear and anxiety? Why are we tolerating him picking on our kids? Why are we tolerating him picking on our finances or making things rough on my job? No, that's a no-go zone, you losing fly devil. So God was saying it. Now look at Exodus 8, verse 19. What was the difference? God. So the magician said unto Pharaoh, we can't touch them. We can't touch this. This is a no-go zone because of the finger of God. The Lord of the fight, who has authority over the Lord of the flies, said, look, you cannot do this. You have no power. You have no authority. Now let's talk about this. Let's talk about no flies, okay? So you see a no-go zone, a no-fly zone. What are we talking about with flies? Look at Matthew chapter 12, verses 25 through 28. Jesus breaks it down that what the flies are. Now we know they're little pesky insects, but really there's flies that are demons. Say demons. Demons, devils. I know that makes some of you scared, but yet you'll go out and run and watch the next horror movie. Now settle down. Let's put things in perspective, right? Big God, little devil. The devil's a little fly. God is all powerful. This stuff shouldn't scare you. What you need to do is be smarter about evil. Right? Be smarter about, the spirit realm. Too many people don't have an understanding. You know why? I watch people. I watch what they tolerate. I watch how people call evil good and good evil. I mean, there was flies starting to buzz in that had beards and wigs and flying into women's restaurants. Restrooms. Thank you. Well, they were probably there in the restaurants too. But they were somewhere buzzing in there. And people tolerated it, right? Oh, that's just a fly that's transitioning. No, buzz off. Get out of women's sports, you fly. Get out of the restrooms. Get away from my kids. Then we started discovering that our kids, when they're going to school and they're checking books out of the library that they're putting in their backpack, you have no idea what's in there until suddenly you discover they're actually having availability to pedophilia and pornography in the library that they can check out in the school. And you know what? The school boards allow it. Those are called flies. And flies love to be on manure. You know what Jesus said? I'll break it down. You know why? God said, Exodus 14, the Lord will fight for you, and your job is to watch your mouth. Because Jesus said, listen, you're going to give an account for every single idle, wasteful, manure word that comes out of your mouth. And we wonder why sometimes that we have problems. Well, just like an open wound or manure draws a fly, so does negativity, unbelief, gossip, strife. Man, I was telling the first service, I said this before, I was watching a video of a young kid who got caught up into this vision where the Lord showed him what is ultimately going to happen to all mankind. All mankind. Where we are all going to stand before the great white throne of God Almighty. And every one of us are going to have to give an account for our life. And he was standing in line, and I'm not picking on a hair color, but I'm telling you his story. So he's standing in line, and he's just, man, the fear of God's hitting him because he's going to have to give an account for his life. Okay, why'd you do what you did? Why weren't you more serious about God? Why did you fall asleep in church and act like it wasn't important to you? Why wasn't God important to you? When it's time for worship, you were more concerned about your cell phone and your watch than you were God. Okay, you're going to give an account. I'm going to give an account. And he's standing there in line, and this woman with blonde hair, he was just describing her, was standing before God Almighty, giving an account for her life, and all of a sudden, he hears what God says to her, and the next thing he hears, he said, it brought the holy fear of God to him. God said, depart from me, I never knew you. And this vortex opened up, and she got sucked down into hell screaming. But before that, he hears God say to her different things that, you know, people, that's why the Bible says in Romans 1, I think it's verse 16, or in Romans, where no man is going to stand before God with an excuse. Quit saying, well, but what if they're in another country and they've never heard God? What if they, you know, are like these tribal people who don't have TVs, cell phones, and technology? No man means no man is going to stand before God with an excuse. You have an excuse of why you don't go to church, but it won't stand one day. You have an excuse why you think it's okay to commit adultery. You're going to give an account for it. You think it's okay to mock God. You will give an account for it. You think it's okay to write lies in the media. You're giving an account for it now, and you will. And God said to her, it's not just these things, but you posted some things on your social media account. Oh, God would never do. Yes, he does. If God could say to Israel, you've been talking bad, murmuring and complaining these 10 times. If God could say that one of the things that he hates in Proverbs 6 is a proud look, it means God is in fact watching and listening. Yeah. And so he hears this judgment, and God says it's not so much what you posted, even though it was evil. It's what you did by your post that caused countless people to become offended, slide into unforgiveness, gossip, hatred, backbiting, strife, that they no longer serve me. You call it's what you did to others. Come on, what's the greatest commandment? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then you're to love somebody else as yourself. But we seem to forget on social media when we're keyboard warriors and we're releasing flies that we are violating commandments. We are to love God and love people, right? So I say that because Jesus is breaking it down. Every kingdom divided can't stand. The problem with the church is we are divided. The problems with the Republican Party, we're divided. The Democrats are more, at least united about all the twisted, immoral things that they believe. Well, Republicans, here you have a Republican House and a Senate, and you got these judges acting up. Why don't you do something? Verse 26. I don't think you're ready for me. And if Satan cast out Satan, he's divided against himself. How shall he stand? Now look at verse 27, the no-fly zone. And if Beelzebub, that means the Lord of the flies, casts out devils. Now look at Ephesians 6, verse 12. I'm going to show you. There are different flies. Now the kind that was sent in the days to Egypt, it says swarms of flies. You know, you look at the book of Revelation, man, you can see where it talks about the devil and how he operates out of the air, okay, and how God had to judge it. But look, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but we fight against fly principalities, fly powers. We fight against flies that are rulers of darkness. So you know what that means? It's like this. The more you tolerate the fly on your meat, the more they'll just come. They'll call others, right? They'll stay on that piece of nice meat, right? They'll land on that beautiful picnic lunch. The more you allow darkness to rule, the more flies that you keep tolerating. Come on. How many of you been looking at your computer? Search for that. Well, the more you allow that darkness to come in, it's going to start ruling. And then you don't know why, all of a sudden you got a stronghold. You go down the road of gossip, and next thing you know it, man, you think you're normal. You think you're justified to let everybody know the skinny on every skinny. But yet it's so fat, it's no longer skinny. Look at all the flies. We tolerate way too much. We allow the devil. Look at Ephesians 4:27, New Testament example of no flies. It says in the book of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 27, give no place to the devil. Come on, not in your marriage. You know, Brenda and I mean, sometimes we've been married almost 36 years, but we're like two cowboys ready to face off because we're very, very determined. Here's Hank. Brenda, you didn't empty the dishwasher. And I'm tired. I cooked dinner all this month and all your life. Woman, I wouldn't go there if I was you. We face off. How do you think it turns out? You tell me. Now, here's how it turns out. You ready? She drops the guns and puts it back in there, but at least the fight is over. She tried. Listen, Brenda's a great shot. Go to 88 Tactical, the gun range. You'll see, man, she's got all of her targets up in the ceiling and the walls. You know, it's just straight. No, actually, the owner said, Brenda, you are an amazing shot. And they actually had her shoot a commercial because she's that good. She's that good with a weapon. Anyway, let's just leave it at that. Too much information. Now, did I miss something, Pastor Doug? All right, so here's the thing. If there's flies that are demons that go around your life, they try to get into, you know, come on. Have you ever had it? You love each other, but why are we arguing? Why? Because there's some flies buzzing around. Why are we struggling? Well, because you haven't put up a no-fly zone. Listen, you have a plaque above your fireplace. Joshua 24:15. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. What's that? You're saying this is a no-go zone, a no-fly zone. That means no dirty movies. That means we're not going to sit there and let the name of the Lord be declared through our TV. Oh, Pastor. Man, listen, yesterday, I'm watching the NCAA. Man, Watson's up there in Canada. I don't know what you guys are like first and like fourth. I'm like, anyway, I won't tell you. But I'm out there doing dishes. And I hear this scream, ah! And I look, and Brenda's manifesting. And I look at the TV, and there's this hand coming out of like, it's like a, looks like Nancy Pelosi, man, trying to sign something on her desk. It's evil. And I'm like, she's like, where's the remote? I'm like, I don't know, where's the remote? And I finally grab it. Oh, stop, you foul thing. Pause. You ain't coming in. Pilgrim, you ain't coming in here. Well, I tell you, you know you're not. I told the first service, man, I'm going to get one of those. I'm going to invent like a hoster. that has like a remote in it. So if I'm out there doing the dishes and I have to get into bold action, the worst thing you do, how many married couples are there? How many have kids and you're married? And the question of your house is, where's the remote? But if I invent this host, you're saying, oh yeah, but I think you're just being so stupid. Really? Because you don't understand the spirit realm where flies buzz. You don't understand. Okay, you ask anybody in the occult. They understand exactly. That's why they put the commercials on. Because you ask them if they know. You ask a witch. Any witches in here? This is a no-go zone. This is a no-witch zone. It's a no-warlock zone, so it ain't going to work. But if you ask them what a medium is, they're going to tell you. If you ask them about channeling, they're going to tell you. You know what your TV is called? A medium. And how many channels do you have? And you just let it run, and you wonder why. When you go into your house, you know, anyone who's spiritual has to go in there like this because there's stuff flying around your house. Oh, you're just being ridiculous. Let me tell you a story. I had a friend of mine, beautiful house, invited me over for dinner. And I'm in there, and they're showing me the house. I said, man, this is a beautiful house. And all of a sudden, I get into this one room, and there's this painting. And it was a person. It was evil. And their eye, I'm telling you the truth, it looked like their eyes followed me. And I'm like, I see you. I've been coming to this house for a long time. I know who you are. I'm going to make you day. I was mad. I'm like, man, I feel evil here in this room. And she stopped me, the wife. She goes, what? You don't like my house? She goes, when you saw that painting, she goes, you're like my husband. You don't like this painting. He doesn't like it. He's been telling me to get rid of it for years. I said, you're asking me. This thing is evil. There is something attached. When I walked into this room, I'm telling you, the spiritual atmosphere of this room, your house, it's heavy. I would get rid of that painting. They got mad. Fast forward, lightning storm hits the neighborhood. All the other houses are fine. Their house gets hit by lightning, burns it and to ashes. They lose everything. 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 And the only thing that is laying on top of a burnt ash pile, untouched, is that painting. Come on, that hidden porno in your house. That secret text to that person that ain't your spouse in your phone. Those social media comments that you've been commenting that's full of gossip and strife and unforgiveness. The enemy's buzzing around. And you ain't swatting it. Look at Matthew 16, verse 19. Jesus said, I've given you a fly swatter. And I like what Kat Kerr said. We don't do demons. Thank you, Kat. We don't do demons. And here's what happens. Whatever you bind, whatever you use the fly swatter against, the Lord of the fight against the Lord of the flies will back it. Whatever you loose, I'll loose the opposite. I get my fly goggles out, my Raid cans. When that fly comes around here, we got serious business. Right? I am preaching better than you all are looking at me. You are looking at me like, I'm seeing some of you like, who is this man? I know, listen, me and Jesus, they said that about who is this man? So it's okay, I'm biblical here. That was a great joke, and I got, would you laugh, those of you that are watching? Laughter's great for you. Somebody just said, yeah, and so are good jokes. All right, now listen, I get it. So, you know, there's fly swatters. Now watch this. Watch Genesis 15. Genesis 15. So Abraham now, he cuts his bullock in half. He starts establishing with God the Abrahamic covenant. And watch verse 11. The enemy can always smell blood. He can smell open wounds. But there's something that he also can smell. All right, stop there. You ever had a thought come in your head? I wasn't thinking of that. God, where did that come from? This evil, foul thought. I mean, you don't even have to be a person that deals with thievery, and all of a sudden, you know, this thought of how to rob a bank comes in your head, right? I don't know. I'm using an example. I would never rob a bank. Well, you know, the enemy, and I'm being stupid on this on purpose, right? Because everybody's thinking I'm going to go for with a lustful thought, right? But let's just say whatever it is. I don't think that way. God, what's up? And God told me, he said the devil goes by odors. He can smell things in the spirit realm. And you emit a certain odor. If you resist those thoughts, it releases a certain odor that signals to the enemy, you can't touch this. That's why they're called unclean spirits. They look for anything unclean, and they'll test your head. They'll watch what's coming out that's unclean. They'll look at what you're typing in to see how much demonic activity and rulers of darkness they can bring based on how much uncleanliness you allow. Come on, if your household looks like a pigsty, I'm sorry, you probably have an unclean spirit. And devils are buzzing around you and you don't even know it. Come on, teenagers, your room that you can never open the door to, so you got, the only way to your room is through the window, you know? And when the fowls of the air came down upon the carcasses, notice what Abraham did. He used his holy fly swatter. He swatted it away. Exodus, we know what happened with Exodus 14. What did God do? Look at verses 16 and 17. God told Moses, lift up your fly swatter. Stretch out your holy fly swatter. Come on, and I will, the Lord of the fight, come against those Egyptian flies. The problem is we're not resisting the devil. The Bible says resist him. Swat the fly. Tell the devil and sickness, disease, strife, division, loneliness, depression, anxiety, fear, whatever else it is that's trying to buzz around your life, tell it, buzz off. Take authority over it. You have to establish a no-fly zone. That's what Exodus 8, we looked at that. Look at Psalm 91, verse 10. This is a no-fly zone. Psalm 91:10, no evil can befall you. Okay, God is telling you. Now, if you're bringing evil into your home, evil attitudes, evil images, right? I call it the noun, people, places, and things. You're wondering why your Christianity is constantly wishy-washy? Well, who are some of the flies that need to buzz off that are some of your friends and people? What are some of the things that you need to have buzz off? It doesn't even have to be bad things. It's just things that are pulling you away from God. No evil shall befall you, no plague, no sickness. It's not allowed to come. You need to set up in your house. No, you know what? If we take medicine, we're going to pray over it. We're going to continue to believe that every time I take these pills or medicine or whatever it is, that it works with my body and not against it. This is a no-go zone, devil. You cannot inflict me. My mind's a no-go zone. No Alzheimer's, no dementia, no memory recall loss, no losing my train of thought, no bipolar, no. Who told you that? Look at John 18. Look at verses 1 through 6. I'm going to show you. Jesus, he walked in this no-go zone. How many remember when he first went into ministry, man, the devil came to him, tempting him 40 days and 40 nights. But Jesus established a no-go zone. Come on, the devil tried to change his appetite. That's what the enemy always tries to do. You know what he does? He tries to get you to do whatever you can to break down your go zone or your fly zone and tolerate him. And Jesus didn't tolerate it. The devil said, hey, come on, if you're the Son of God, the devil speaking, turn these stones into bread. What was he trying to do? Trying to change his appetite. Hey, right? His appetite was for God. He was fasting and praying. Tried to get him to go the way of the flesh. See, flies love the flesh. They land on it. Every time we flesh out and get mad, can't control our temper, buzz, can you hear the sound of the buzz? Every time we want to respond and comment on social media, ugly and nasty, buzz, every time we want to talk about somebody and be the ones that call everything out in the body of Christ. Buzz. Jesus spoke these words. He went over the brook of Cedron, in which we entered his disciples. Verse 2, watch this. And Judas betrayed him. Verse 3, look at what happens. Judas brings a band of men. There were 300 to 600 elite forces. These were like special ops forces that came with their weapons and their lanterns that were like because you got to understand the Garden of Gethsemane had what was called a grotto, which was, had little caves, but there was one specific cave that could hold up to 100, 200 people. That's where Jesus would often teach. That's why Judas knew exactly where to go. It's why they had torches and weapons because, the big olive trees, different places to hide. They were after Jesus. Verse 4, look at what happens. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come, he went forth. He said, who are you seeking? Look at verse 5. And they answered, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am. The he was added by the translators. He said, I am. Notice what happened. As soon as he said, I am, All of a sudden, verse 6, this supernatural force in the original Greek is like the equivalent to nuclear power, knocks all of these bands of men and all of these people flat on their backs supernaturally. Now, you would think that that would be enough to show them this is a no-go zone. This is why all of a sudden Peter, he comes and he pulls out his sword, and the Bible said he wielded his sword. What it means is with violence. He tried to chop off the head of the high priest's servant Malchus. Instead, he misses and hits his ear. Now, Malchus, you got to understand, they didn't believe. He was part of the Sadducees. They didn't believe in the supernatural. They thought Jesus was blasphemy, that he was not the Son of God. He was making up miracles. There's no supernatural. And now the very servant who believed that stuff, his ear is laying on the ground, and Jesus proves to every one of those, after they got up off the ground, he picks up the ear, puts it back on, and does a supernatural manifestation. You think that that would be enough for Malchus to say, hey, I'm not touching this guy? This, go back to Caiaphas, who hated Jesus. Say, listen, the supernatural's real. My ear was cut off. And every one of those soldiers can testify. No. When Jesus had to appear before Caiaphas, you bet his servant Malchus was there. And it said every one of them, when Jesus stood there and they looked at him and they mocked him, made fun of him, the Bible says every one of them spit on Jesus. Jesus had spit from probably a good 100 people coming down his face, in his mouth, through his eyes. They're mocking him, accusing him, and the Bible said he opened not his mouth. Don't tell me you have an excuse to always lash out. And then, if that's not bad enough, including Malchus, it says everyone went by Jesus and struck him with their fists. You know what that means? Violently. Violently. To try to knock him out. It was not, it was, can you imagine 100 fist blows in his face? Jesus stood there and took it. Look at Mark 15. I'm going to show you. Verses, 1 through 5. Look at Jesus. Now he's standing before Pontius Pilate. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to close this message up. Look at Mark 15. This is phenomenal. Mark 15. Look at Jesus. I caught something here because I'm writing a book on the side that has to do with how we treat the literal body of Christ. And straightway in the morning, the chief priests carried Jesus, delivered him away to Pilate. Now that word delivered away, it literally means to tie a rope around him loosely. Okay? Loosely. And it had to be because he had to fulfill Isaiah 53, verse 7. Isaiah 53, 7 says, he was a lamb led to the slaughter. Isaiah 53. This was not a nice little, prick of his finger, type on his wrist. Jesus was mutilated on the cross. That's why the Bible said they couldn't even look at him. In fact, in Isaiah 50, it says they vomited when they looked at him. That's how gross. Raw hamburger meat, blood, 351 lashes. It was gross. It was a slaughter. But everybody knew that the way that they led their lambs was they put a loose noose around them and would lead them. That's what they did to Jesus. They wanted him alive. And they led him to the slaughter. Now look at what happens. They go before Pilate. Look at verse 2. I want to show you a principle. And Pilate asked Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? And here's Jesus' answer. That's what you say. Didn't even tell him. Said, that's what you say. All right. Now, another time, Pilate gets real big and says, do you know that I have the power to crucify you? And Jesus points his finger up with blood coming down his face. Just got hit over the head, punched. His face is bruised and swollen, spit on. He looks at him. He says, you have no power. This is what you have to say to the devil. You have no power. Jesus says, you have no power unless it had been given to you of my Father. Hebrews 2:14 already settled it. He who has the power of death stripped it from the devil who had it at the time. Now Jesus holds the keys. Don't let the devil hold the keys. Don't let the Lord of the Flies keep buzzing around your house. He has no power. And so look at what happens. Now, Pilate at one point says, finally, tell me plainly, are you the Christ? And you know what Jesus' answer was? You bet I am. Why? Exodus 3:14. Moses is standing before the burning bush and meeting with God. And he says, okay, tell me your name. And God says, my name is I am. You're sick? I am your healer. You're lonely? I am your provider. I'll provide. I'm your husband. I'm your boyfriend or whatever. I'm your friend. I'm your, right? I'm your provider. I am. And that's when Jesus said it. There was so much power. We're going to come back to this. Now watch what happens. So the first time he says, thou sayest, Mark 15. Now let's keep reading. We'll go back to Mark 15. I want to show you a principle. And then I'm going to end this. Pastor Doug, you can start coming. And Pilate asked him again. So he asked him twice. And this is important because you have to see that the discourse here was 3 times. Okay? The first one, are you the Christ or whatever? Are you the King of the Jews? Thou sayest. That was the first thing. Now, Jesus and Pilate again asked him the second time. And Jesus didn't say anything. And Pilate goes, do you understand how many witnesses are against thee? And this was what Roman law was. You have to understand this. You were allowed 3 opportunities to speak up and defend yourself. If you refuse to speak up after you were given by the governor or the king 3 chances, if you refuse to testify or say anything, you are automatically guilty. Now watch this. Pilate asked him again, you're not answering me anything? Don't you know how many people are saying things against you? Don't you know what they're writing about you? Don't you know what so-and-so said? Don't you know what I heard about you? Look at verse 5. And Jesus yet answered nothing, and the media marveled. Your social media crowd marveled. Why aren't you talking? Aren't they false? Didn't someone say that that's a false something? Didn't somebody, they tried that with me. Hey, Pastor, why aren't you commenting? Because God told me to shut up, not say anything. When all stuff was going around about, is this person true and this person's false? Let God decide. And then I watched the ones being accused handle it better than the ones that were accusing them. Pilate marveled. Now let's go back to John 18. We're going to close this baby up. Now, and Jesus let's go back to verse 5. Okay, remember the question. Jesus, they said, are you Jesus of Nazareth? And he said, I am. He was at it. I am, just like Exodus 3. I'm God. You're looking right at God. Fully man, fully God. I am. And now notice what happened. The force of nuclear power. This is why when you establish a no-go zone, you establish a life of righteousness, you work hard in your marriage to pray together as often as you can. You stay out of strife. You never allow divorce or immorality to ever be named among you and your spouse. Right? You watch over your kids. You pray for them continually. Verse 6, and the power of God was released, and they all went backwards. You mean to tell me 600 trained soldiers are going to fall backwards if it wasn't some kind of supernatural power? People come into a charismatic church and a Pentecostal church, and I know there's that which people do by tradition. But I've had people walk out when I've laid hands on people and the supernatural power knocks them flat on their back. We're scared. And then later on, that Friday, they go to Friday the 13th, part 271, and watch Jason cut someone's head off again with the chainsaw. And that's normal. No, you're twisted, man. All right. I'm going to end with just one last thing. Look at Exodus 9, 1 through 3. You can watch the first service. I got into a little bit of other stuff. But I want to just show you this last verse because I want to break it down to your world real quick. Oh, Pastor Doug's here. I will go very quickly, like 1 minute here. And the Lord said unto Moses, go unto Pharaoh, tell him, let my people go. Verse 2, here's what happens. But if you refuse to let them go, I will hold them still. Okay? Behold, the hands of the Lord, though. Tell him this message. The Lord is going to allow a difference between Egypt. They're going to have a fly zone. The devil's going to come in, and when the devil comes in, it's going to touch their cattle, their horses, their donkeys, their camel, their oxen, and their sheep. These are all areas that God is trying to tell us today. Do not allow the devil to touch. It's a no-fly zone. Number one, what is the cattle? The cattle is your milk. It's your food. It's your daily life. Devil, you're not touching my day-to-day. That's why you should get up every morning and say, this is the no-go zone. This is the no-fly zone. I plead and apply the blood of Yeshua over my life, over my family, over my cars. When I get in my car, it's the no-go zone. Devil, you can't touch this. Thousands fall at my side, 10,000s at my right hand. It doesn't come near me or my family. This is the no-go zone. You can't touch my day-to-day life. Psalm 23:6 says every day you need to look over your shoulder and see goodness and mercy that's part of your life. Psalm 23:6 is part of the Good Shepherd. Jesus said, I am, speaking as God, John chapter 10. I am the good shepherd, and I come to give you life and life more abundantly. That's part of your abundant life. Second one, horses. Man, if you had a horse in those days, you were rich. Well, make sure that we're tithing and giving offerings. Make sure that we are not allowing the devil to touch our retirements, our finances, right? No, devil, you can't touch my appliances. You can't touch those things. You cannot rob from me. I'm a giver. I'm a tither. The donkeys, well, Jesus showed us that. He said to two of his disciples, we're going to talk about this in 2 weeks, Palm Sunday. Hey, go to this business owner, tell him I want his new car. That's what he said. He said, I want his new car. He's got it parked in the parking lot outside of his place. It was called, go find that donkey that's never been ridden before. Okay, if you go to a dealership, what would you say? I want a car that's never been driven before. That's what Jesus was saying. Go get me a donkey. Go get me a vehicle. Okay, the devil can't touch your stuff. He can't touch your day-to-day, your cattle. He can't touch your riches, your prosperity, your blessings. He's not allowed to touch your vehicles, whether they're in the garage or on the road, whether they're driven by you or your family or your kids. How about your camels? Your camels have humps. That's called your retirement, your 401k, your Social Security, all your benefits, your savings. He can't touch it. And you need to tell him that. This is a no-go zone. No, I'm not going to, in old age, be put in a home somewhere that sucks dry my finances. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's a fact, Jack. Oxen, what's your oxen? Devil, you're not touching my work. Yeah, that's what oxen were. They were work. You're not touching my job. I don't care if they lay off people. If God doesn't want me to be laid off, I'm not going to be laid off. If he does, I'll find something better, but you ain't touching my occupation, my business. What about sheep? Lastly, that's your threads. That's maybe your furniture or your furnishings. Devil, you cannot touch. If I want something nice or I want to buy something nice for my wife or my baby, I'll do it. I remember the day that we got free of the flies. We used to go to the grocery store with a calculator, and I remember how disheartening it was when we would pull up just right before the checkout. We would check out first, and we would make sure we added everything up once, twice, 3 times a later, and there was some laters. Do we really have to give this up, Brenda? Right? I mean, come on. Toilet paper for a corner. Do we really have to make it? That sounded really bad. Let's just leave that. You know what I'm saying? We had to pick and choose. All right. Oxen, you all got that. Sheep. God has put a difference. Last scripture. Pastor Doug, come. Luke 10, verse 19. I'm going to prove it to you. You have authority and power over every devil, over every serpent, over every scorpion, Luke 10:19, and by no means shall anything harm or injure you. What was that? That's a spiritual and natural immunity. It's a no-go zone. It's a no-fly zone. See it? By no means. That's what Jesus said. This is Jesus' words. Nothing's to harm or injure you. That's the no-go zone. All right, Pastor Doug, close it up. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for letting me have some. I loved having fun with you today. Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you, Pastor. That was